Right, so Israel wants us to believe that a fishing boat loaded with flour is the equivalent of an aircraft carrier now, and that a Libyan hospital ship is somehow a battleship in disguise, and that medics with bandages are Hamas commandos in scrubs. Only in Tel Aviv's fever dreams can drones circling over solidarity yachts be described as self-defense, and yet that's where we are, isn't it? The Sumud Flotilla sails into the drone-filled yellow zone, and the skies above it hum with surveillance craft, some Israeli, some apparently American, all treating bread and bandages like weapons of mass destruction. If you want to understand the paranoia behind Israel's blockade of Gaza, look no further than this absurd spectacle. A nuclear-armed state and its patron superpower panicking at the prospect of a single boat breaking their carefully stage-managed siege. Right, so a question that's come up a few times in comments on my previous flotilla videos has been to what end does it matter if one ship breaks the siege of Gaza? It's just one boat. What difference can that possibly make? So let's start with a picture, because pictures matter. The picture of the scene, a fleet of small boats, fishing vessels, solidarity yachts, even a hospital ship flying the Libyan flag now, as has just joined the Sumud Flotilla, making their way across the Mediterranean. They carry sacks of flour, medical supplies, baby milk, activists, trade unionists, clergy, musicians, students, comedians. In any sane world, this is not the stuff of geopolitics at all. In any sane world, the sight of fishing boats crossing open water would interest only local harbour masters and curious onlookers. And yet here, over these boats, drones circle. Their shadows crawl across the decks. The buzzing is audible in the stillness of the sea. Activists look up and say, yes, those are drones, aren't they? Carsey Blanton, the American musician aboard one ship, told social media that she believes they are American drones. Others insist they are Israeli. Does it matter? The flotilla spokespeople confirmed that at least 3 were circling at once. It doesn't really matter whose insignia sits on the wings, because the meaning is the same. The baby milk, the bandages, the bread, the civilians, they're all being treated as threats requiring unmanned military surveillance. Only in Tel Aviv's diseased imagination can all this be recast as a national security threat, of course. Only in their paranoia of the blockade does a fishing boat carrying food become Hamas's navy. These drones aren't about security, they're about symbolism, and about fear too. Because Israel's blockade of Gaza is not just material, it's theatrical. It's a stage set. It's a performance designed to project invulnerability. It must look airtight. It must look unbreakable. For Palestinians, it says, you are alone. For the world, it says, don't bother, you're going to fail. For Israelis, it says, your state is in total control of the situation. But like any theatre, it can be rather fragile. If one boat, just one, manages to slip through, the performance completely collapses. The illusion implodes. Suddenly the world sees that the siege is not divinely ordained or impregnable, but a brittle wall of brute force that just fractured, and brute force can be broken. This is why Israel's response has always been so absurdly disproportionate. Think back to the Mavi Marmara in 2010, the Turkish ship that was carrying aid that was intercepted by Israeli commandos in international waters. 9 activists shot dead. 9 people killed for daring to carry food and medicine without a permit from Tel Aviv to the people of Gaza, whose land they illegally occupy anyway, and are now hell-bent on seizing that land for Israel. That massacre was not an accident, it was ritual violence. A deliberate act of terror designed to warn the world, do not test us, do not even try. Smaller yachts followed in later years, boats with names like the Freedom or the Amal Hope or the Zaytuna Oliver. All were seized, boarded, towed to Ashdod, their passengers detained, their cargo stolen. We've seen likewise earlier this year with the Madeleine and the Handler. Each interception dressed up in the tired language of Israel's security, but each in reality is a stage performance of dominance, reflecting not power but paranoia. And now with the Sumud Flotilla, the illusion is under greater threat than ever. This is not 1 or 2 yachts, this is more than 50 vessels sailing from Italy, Spain, Tunisia, joined now by a Libyan hospital ship which is loaded to the rafters with medical supplies and equipment. It's no longer a fringe protest, but a visible movement on the sea, endorsed by unions and governments alike, supported by many who are now sympathetic to them, and it's being reported on worldwide. Its organisers openly declare the ambition of the movement, not just 1 more flotilla, but an armada of 1,000 ships. 1,000 they're talking about now. So that's not protest anymore, that's an uprising at sea, and the threat of 1,000 ships coming to Gaza next time, it's just driving Israeli paranoia through the roof. It shows the current flotilla isn't cowed by Israeli threats at all, because they know just how scared of them succeeding Israel is. And so the paranoia just multiplies further. The flotilla hasn't even neared the blockade line yet, and already drones are buzzing overhead. And not for the first time, of course. In Tunisian waters, 2 flotilla boats were targeted by the drones. Activists claim that drones dropped incendiaries. Tunisian authorities denied it at the time, insisting no drones had been detected, that the fire was accidental. Oh, it was a life jacket that just caught fire, they said. A life jacket spontaneously combusting that nobody ever bought. Nobody on the ground believed that one iota. They remembered cases like Mohamed Zouari, who was assassinated in Sfax in 2016, a killing Tunisian authorities actually blamed on Mossad. They remember Israel's long history of striking far beyond its borders and within theirs. And then have come comments in the last 24 hours from Tom Barrack, the billionaire and fixer with deep Gulf ties, the US ambassador to Turkey and currently interfering in Lebanon and Syria, who has hinted in an Al Arabiya interview that Israel might have been behind the Tunis sabotage, but he didn't say it outright. He didn't need to. He spoke the way insiders always speak, very carefully, a little bit suggestively, as if acknowledging what everyone already knows. When even Barrack nods in that direction, though, activist suspicion stops sounding conspiratorial and starts sounding blatantly the truth. But the flotilla sails on, of course, doesn't it? It enters Israel's so-called yellow zone now, not territorial waters, not Gaza's shoreline, still international sea. But Israel draws its phantom lines and declares beyond this, our blockade is law. Crossing into the yellow zone triggers the next stage of intimidation, therefore. More ships lurk in the distance. Electronic jamming might start to kick in. More drones might appear. Activists hear the buzzing. They see the shadows on the decks. They feel the eye of surveillance. Some swear they're US drones, others Israeli, but that doesn't matter, does it? The activists may not distinguish insignia at 10,000 feet, but they know the larger truth, that they are being watched by a coalition. When they say US drones, they are naming complicity at the very least. Washington's not a bystander. Washington is the siege's guarantor. So another question rises. Why does Israel react to even the smallest flotilla with such ferocity? Why has just a single boat been seen as such a threat to them? And the answer lies in the true purpose of this blockade. Israel insists it's about their security, about stopping weapons smuggling. But humanitarian agencies have documented the reality over and over again. It's collective punishment. It's starvation as strategy. An Israeli advisor once said outright that Gaza must be kept on the brink. The blockade is designed to grind down life, to weaken resistance by strangling existence itself. If that is the purpose, then a flotilla is not a military danger, but a political one. It threatens to expose the siege as unlawful, indefensible, beatable. The most dangerous weapon on board those boats are cameras. Here's where law enters the picture, though. Under international law, a blockade may only be legal if it is declared effective and not aimed at starving civilians. Therefore, Israel's blockade fails on all of those counts. It starves the population deliberately. It is collective punishment, prohibited under the Geneva Conventions. And it's enforced not just against military traffic, but against civilian solidarity voyages in international waters. That makes it piracy. The unlawful interception of civilian ships on the high seas. Piracy when others do it, of course, but it's self-defense when it's Israel, isn't it? The double standard is always blatant. Imagine Iran intercepting civilian boats instead, shooting activists, towing their vessels to Bandar Abbas. The world would explode with condemnation, wouldn't it? But when Israel does it, headlines just sand it down to, well, it's all about complex access issues, don't you know? That silence is complicity, though, and the flotilla's existence is an act of resistance against that complicity, an assertion that international law still means something. But now add a geopolitical layer to this. This flotilla is not just activists from Europe, it's not just Western leftists or some NGOs. It has ships sailing from Italy and Spain and Tunisia. It has a Libyan hospital ship now with it, for crying out loud. Governments are involved here. Ports are opened. Authorities are pressured by their own publics. This matters because it internationalizes the struggle. Israel has always relied on isolating Gaza, turning it into an internal problem framed as security. But when Italy or Spain hosts flotilla departures, when Tunisian waters become a stage, when Libya sends a hospital ship, a broken state as Libya still largely is, the blockade is no longer Israel versus Hamas. It becomes Israel versus an emerging coalition of ever more states, movements and unions. That changes the stakes, doesn't it? It raises the cost of Israel's overreaction. If Israel intercepts this flotilla with violence, it risks diplomatic fallout with multiple Mediterranean countries at once. And that's precisely why drones are buzzing overhead. To intimidate before confrontation happens, to try and nip resistance in the bud. Which leads back to that central question, doesn't it? What difference would one boat make? Just one. And the answer is everything. One boat proves the blockade is not airtight. One breach is a detonation and the spell shatters. Precedent becomes set. Others will be bound to follow. 1 becomes 50, 50 becomes 100, 100 becomes 1,000, an armada of conscience growing ever larger, an uprising at sea. That's what Israel fears the most, not rockets from Gaza or from Yemen or whoever else, but civilians with flour and baby milk for the people of Gaza, showing that its siege is fragile, that Israel is beatable. That's the difference one boat would make. And it's not unprecedented either. History is full of moments where one breach changed everything. Think of the Berlin airlift in 1948, a city cut off, starved into submission, and then planes start landing with flour and coal. One landing becomes hundreds, hundreds become thousands. The blockade collapses, not because the West Berliners had better weapons, but because the illusion of total control was broken. Or think of apartheid South Africa. For years, sanctions were patchy, resistance was repressed, but one boycott, one strike, one act of defiance would spark another until the dam burst and the system collapsed under moral pressure. Or think of the Irish hunger strikes of 1981. One prisoner's defiance became a national uprising because it showed that the system was not omnipotent. That's what one boat means in Gaza. It means the illusion's pierced, and once pierced, it cannot be repaired. There's no going back from that point onwards. And here lies the great irony. Every act of paranoia, every drone strike, every commando raid, every suspected act of sabotage is supposed to show strength. In reality, it exposes Israel's weakness. It shows that the blockade survives only through performance. And that collapses the moment the illusion is broken. Overreaction is not proof of control, it is proof of just how fragile it actually is. And the US's role sits squarely in the middle of this. Even if the drones overhead are Israeli, even if the sabotage in Tunis was Mossad, US fingerprints are everywhere. Washington flies surveillance missions from Sicily and Crete and the UK base on Cyprus, RAF at Kriteri. Washington supplies the weapons and the cover. Washington defends the blockade at the UN and constantly vetoes action against Israel. Without US complicity, the siege would be unsustainable. When activists call them US drones, they are telling a larger truth no matter who the operator of them might actually be. The blockade is not just Israel's crime, it's America's too. And so we circle back to why does one boat matter? Because the blockade is not just a military cordon, it's a story. A story Israel tells the world that Gaza is sealed off. And this is the way of things. This is the way they are. This is the way things must remain. But stories can be broken. A single successful voyage shatters the illusion. It would blow apart the myth of permanence. It would expose the blockade as what it is. Not law, not nature, but brute force pretending to be inevitability. A genocide. And once that truth is revealed, there's no putting it back in the box. So picture it again, a Libyan hospital ship sailing alongside fishing boats and solidarity yachts and whatever other manner of floating vessel. Overhead, drones buzz like mechanical hornets, warships lurk, politicians hint at sabotage, billionaires whisper about Israeli fingerprints, and all of it is to stop just one boat at the end of the day, which is one boat too many, from breaking their spell. Israel's paranoia is not strength, it's a confession that the siege is fragile and utterly unjust, that the wall can crack, that the illusion can implode, that the blockade once breached will collapse like glass under pressure because one boat is enough, one boat is all it takes, one boat is the detonator. One boat is far too many for Israel. For more on the very latest of the Sumud Flotilla, which this channel is covering very closely right now, whilst also checking out that 1,000-ship claim I alluded to before, because it really is a claim, do watch this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as spreading the word and helping support the channel at the very same time, which is very much appreciated, holding power to account for ordinary working class people, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.